Okie dokie. So it doesn't seem like the attendees number is going up anymore. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Sappy Hour. I don't know what number we're at, but if you haven't been to Sappy Hour before, it's a bit of a play on words with happy hour and Sammy the sapsucker, which is our logo bird. And so we spend an hour going over a topic. We'll have a brief presentation at the start and then a Q&A kind of period at the end. And so if you have any technical problems with the Zoom, go ahead and put that in the chat. So if your volume's not working or something similar, if you have questions kind of about the topic, and today's topic is data entry, go ahead and put it in the Q&A. And so if you're on your phone, the Q&A kind of appears at the bottom. And if you're on your computer, it's kind of along a band at the bottom as well. If you're joining us on Facebook, feel free to just kind of leave a comment under the video and we will get to your questions on Facebook as well. And so, yeah, I'm here with Mike Cadman, who is the Atlas coordinator, if you don't know already, and Mike Burrell, who is the chair of the Significant Species Committee, and also a member of many of the other Atlas committees as well. They've been on a lot of the previous Sappy Hours, so you might recognize them from there. I'm Kaelyn, I'm the assistant coordinator, and have also been running some of the other Sappy Hours. Emily, who you guys might know if you're Sappy Hour regulars, is not here today, but she will be joining us on our future Sappy Hours. And so I guess I can just jump right into my short presentation. So I'm going to give a bit of a presentation on data entry. Sorry, I'm just going to go to the presentation here. Oh, I'm going to see the Facebook Live for a second. Okay, so we'll kind of jump right in. Okay, here we are. So yeah, Sappy Hour on data entry is today. I just want to kind of first make a note that the full data entry walkthroughs are on our YouTube channel. So we do have walkthroughs that go through submitting checklist data using the app or web portal, submitting point count data, how to import data from eBird. And so full walkthroughs for all of these can be found on the YouTube channel, which is Ontario Breeding Bird Atlas-3. And so you can kind of see that first playlist there is called Atlas Tutorials, and that's kind of where you'll find everything on how to enter data and how to use digital point counts and all sorts of stuff. Right under that playlist is the Sappy Hours playlist. And so if you find that tonight's Sappy Hour is going a little bit quick, or you kind of wish you could pause or rewind something that I've said, this Sappy Hour with all the other Sappy Hours is going to be on our YouTube channel in that playlist. So you can always go back to something that has been said and kind of replay it. Another thing I wanted to mention kind of before we get going on everything is that there is a deadline for August 31st for data submission. I know some people are feeling a bit nervous about that. They're not going to make the deadline. And so I just want you to know that we have the deadline so that we can prepare ourselves for 2022, do some gap analyses, and figure out, what needs to be done. If you're not able to get your data in by August 31st, that is okay. We will still be accepting the data. That date is really just so that we can have enough time to prepare ourselves kind of for next year. All right, so the first question is, where do I go to submit my Atlas data? And so the answer to this is Nature Counts. So Nature Counts is the database where we're going to be collecting and storing, managing Atlas data. So Nature Counts has both an app and a web portal. If you have an Android device or an iPhone, then you can download the Nature Counts app if you just go to your app store and search for Nature Counts. Make sure that you have it all as one word, Nature Counts, because otherwise I think you might have a bit more trouble finding the app. It will have the icon that you can see on your left-hand side there. If you want to submit through the web portal, it's still on Nature Counts. And this is where things can get a bit confusing for some. There are actually kind of two websites. The first website is the Atlas website, birdsontario.org. This has all the information on the Atlas history, background info on the atlas, instruction manuals, data forms, frequently asked questions, newsletters, all that sort of stuff. It also links to the atlas database, which is Nature Counts. Nature Counts, although it has the same kind of banner on the top, is actually a different website. So you can get to it from the Atlas website, but it does take you to a different Nature Counts website. This is where data is entered and reviewed. The site has species maps, kind of everything to do with visualizing the data, square summary sheets, coverage stats, and the coverage map. So how do you get to Nature Counts? Well, you can get to Nature Counts through the Atlas website, which is www.birdsontario.org. So there's a few red arrows here. I'll go top to bottom. So the top left is login. That will take you to the login page of Nature Counts, the database. The second red arrow is if you go to tools and resources under data entry, there's options for general atlasing, point counts, advanced point counts, and special surveys. If you click each of these, it will take you to the data submission page for that on Nature Counts. The third arrow, kind of at the bottom left there, is just kind of a big Nature Counts data entry button. And so if all else fails, you can just scroll through that main landing page. And if you see that one, you can click on it and it'll take you to Nature Counts. All right, the next question is, can I import my data from eBird? And the answer is yes. You can import your data from eBird to Nature Counts, which is to the Atlas database. The first step for importing your data from eBird would be to go to Nature Counts and to click on your username in the right corner and go to your profile. This is so that you can connect your Nature Counts or Atlas profile with your eBird profile. So you'll want to scroll down until where it says eBird exports, and here is where you will kind of connect the two accounts. This will set you up for step 2, and so that is when you go to the data submission page, there's an option to import from eBird. If you haven't already connected your two accounts, then the import from eBird function sometimes gives you a bit of trouble. So when you press import from eBird, it'll say, this is your eBird login and password, and it asks you for your eBird checklist ID. So you'll have to go to eBird and go into that checklist and then copy that ID number. So you can see that the red arrow kind of on the bottom points to this checklist ID number. Sorry if you can hear the rain there. It's a bit of a thunderstorm here. Okay, the next question is, do I need to submit a rare and colonial species form to the Atlas? So the hard copy of the form. And the answer is no. The Atlas data forms are for atlasers who prefer to record the data using paper and pencil for their own kind of records rather than using the app or just jotting down notes. This information needs to be transferred to the details section on Nature Counts for the appropriate species. And so you can take this down for your own notes. It's kind of just to remember what things you need to take down, but it still needs to be transferred into Nature Counts later. So you don't need to send this to us. Okay, the next question is, how do I add a location for a species? You can kind of see in this form that there's like a spot to write down the location. And so can you add a location for a species? The answer is yes. So on the web portal, if you press add details, the little button next to the species you want to add a location for, it brings up this kind of little pop-up box that has description, coordinates, media files, and close. If you click on the coordinates tab, you can either select the location on the map by clicking on it, or you can enter the lat lon of the individual's location. So that brings me kind of to the next tab in that pop-up, and that is the media files. So the question that I sometimes get is, why is media files grayed out, and how do I submit media? Well, we're currently working on the portal for adding media to your species records. And so we're hoping that that will be available for 2022. So it's currently unavailable, and that's why it's kind of grayed out. I know it can be a bit confusing there. All right, how do I add a location for a species using the app? So if you have your app open and you see the species name, you can tap on it to open the additional options. So that usually includes details and location. If you press add next to the location option, This will bring up a map, and you can click on the map to select the location of the individual you want to add. Alrighty, next question. How do I edit my data once it's been submitted? So once data is submitted, it can only be edited from the web portal, regardless of whether you submitted your data through the app or the web. So when you're on Nature Counts, the database, you want to go to Explore and View Data Forms. That will bring up a list of all of your data that you've submitted so far to the atlas. If you have a lot of data, it might be worthwhile to kind of use some of these options for filtering. So you can filter it by protocol. So for example, if you did a nightjar survey and you're trying to edit that one, then you can just filter by the nightjar survey. You can also filter it by month, site ID or name. So if you have the square number, you can put that in there. If you accidentally put a super wonky species that you completely didn't mean to put at all, you can filter it by that species and press display forms, and then your one list that has that wonky species will show up. So once you have the list that you want to modify, you can either press the edit button, or if it's a general atlasing list, you can press view. When you press view, you'll have the option to change the site or effort, or to change the species list. How do I change a breeding evidence code for a species? So this is on the web. You can either do this before you submit or after you submit if you realize you've put in the wrong breeding evidence code. So for general atlasing, if you try to press that little drop-down menu, it just shows you the code that you've already chosen. If that's the case, then you want to just highlight it and delete it or backspace it, and it will completely clear that breeding evidence section. Once the breeding evidence is completely clear, then you can select a new breeding evidence. I know that that one's kind of tricky. We're trying to get it so that it's just a drop-down menu and you can just switch it to blank if you want. But for now, you just have to highlight it and delete it. For special surveys and advanced point counts, the breeding evidence is already in a drop-down menu. So for this one, you don't need to highlight it and delete it. It just gives you the full drop-down menu. So I guess the rule can maybe be if you click it and it doesn't give you this whole list, then you're going to have to erase what's already there. Okay, how do I remove a species from my list? Some people, like I said before, may accidentally add a completely wonky species they didn't mean to add. They pressed it accidentally. So once you remove the breeding evidence and the count, the species will be removed from your list entirely. And like I said, you can do this before you submit, or after you've already submitted, you can go back in and edit it afterwards on the web. Okay, how do I change breeding evidence for a species on the app? So again, you can only do this before you've submitted your data. If you've already pressed submit on the checklist, then you can only change it on the web portal. But if you haven't submitted your list yet and you want to change the breeding evidence, you can just click on the breeding evidence that you want to change. So in this case, that S next to American Robin. And then you can just select the new breeding evidence that you want to change it to, or you can press clear breeding evidence if you want to remove it altogether. How do I change the species count? So if you, my head might be covering this for some people, but if you single press on the number, the count number, it will go up by 1 each time you press it. That can be kind of annoying for folks that have a lot of individuals of a single species or that want to remove it entirely. If you press and hold on that number, then your keyboard will come up and you can either erase it or you can add a large number rather than clicking it 100 times. And how do I remove a species from my list? This is actually something that I just learned. So thanks, Mike Burrell, for this one. If you press and hold on the species name, a pop-up will appear to confirm that you actually want to clear the species entirely of the breeding evidence and the count. So you will need to confirm that you do want to clear it by pressing that clear button, and then it will just remove it from your list. So that's actually pretty handy, but you might also want to make sure that you don't accidentally clear something. Okay, And lastly, some things that are still being worked on, but that we are aware of and you should be aware of too. The first one is that the download data, if you go to view data forms, the download data button downloads a blank Excel sheet. This is a bug and we are working to get it fixed so that when you download your data, it downloads an Excel sheet that has your data populated in it. So yeah, we are aware of this one and we're working to fix it. And the second one is that the square summary sheet might not be showing special survey and advanced point count data properly. So one example of this is if you did an advanced point count, one that has time bands and distance bands, your on-road point counts might be showing as off-road point counts. And so we are aware that the special survey data is not kind of being represented accurately on square summary sheet, and we're working to correct this one as well. And so, yeah, that's it for me. I think, Mike Burrell, is your internet working, or did you have any last comments before we go to the questions?
Yeah, I think my internet's working. Am I coming through? Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to just, some people have been asking about square level checklists and when to start new checklists and things like that. So I just wanted to quick pass on some advice on that. So you can enter checklists at the square level. That's fine. We hope that you will do more detailed location checklists and just one for the entire checklist on a visit. Those square level checklists, they provide some information, but there's a lot we can't do with the data that comes in that way. So we're really hoping, and most people are doing it, they're entering their data at specific locations within each square. And then in terms of when you should start a new checklist, the rule of thumb is anytime you enter a new habitat. So, if you're birding in a deciduous forest, it's great if you can do a single checklist for that habitat, and then when you move on to agricultural fields, start a new checklist for that habitat. That way we can, when the data are analyzed, we're able to associate the birds you had on a given checklist with that particular habitat, and it allows us to do a lot more with the different advanced statistics and things like that.
Perfect. That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, I think we'll get started on some of the questions. I had some folks email me ahead of tonight just to get their questions in. One person asks, I observed a pair of sparrows that were too far away to determine the species. I was at work, so no binoculars, but they were feeding a brown-headed cowbird in my square. Can I count this?
Mike, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'm just getting off mute. Yeah, you certainly can. You would just put the brown-headed cowbird in as a fledged young, and that should take care of it. If you did happen to know the species, you could also put a confirmed breeding for that species as well. You could put fledged young for the song sparrow, say. So if you did know it was a song sparrow, you could put confirmed breeding for both on that observation. So it's kind of a great one to get.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. A friend sent me a photo of a common loon sitting on her nest while out in their canoe. It's also in my square. Can I count this?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. It would be good to get that data. We've been sort of trying to decide how best to handle this. The simplest way is with a just simple record like that. If you're, well, in this case, it was a photo and it was a common loon, there's no doubt about it. You could just enter it under your name, and maybe in the comments section, just say this was from Mary Jones and provide a little bit of information for it that way. We don't want to encourage too much of that to some extent, because obviously there's no effort associated with that data. We don't know how much time went into finding it, so we can't use it in the same way that we'd like to use the other data. But that's certainly one way of handling it. But I think there's others. Mike and Kaelyn make some other suggestions as well.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the very best way to do it would be to get your friend signed up for the atlas and get them turned into an atlaser. And maybe that takes a little bit of one-on-one, and you can show them how to do everything and point them towards the resources that we've got. That's like best case scenario. You turn that into a new atlaser, and then your friend starts collecting other breeding evidence. Yeah, and then I mean, you could speak to your regional coordinator as well. We've sort of thrown around the idea of maybe regional coordinators have a dedicated account for those sorts of incidental records like that. We haven't provided specific guidance on that, but yeah, it depends on the situation. I mean, yeah, like I said, the best case scenario is turn your friend into an atlaser, or you could even, if they're not interested in doing any more atlasing, you could create an account for them and submit it up on their behalf. Create an account under their name and submit the record that way. And then when they send you some more records next year, then you can enter those records for them too.
Yeah, I think once we do get that system worked out for the regional coordinators to establish their own sort of regional account for these miscellaneous records, we should get word out to everybody on that and just make it clear how you do that.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Okay, so one person asks, I have several nesting boxes on my property. There were tree swallows using 3 of them. Do I count individual nesters or just one species? So do they just count the species once, or do they count all of the nesters that were on their property?
Well, you would count whatever you get on a specific checklist. So if you're wandering on the eastern part of the property and there's 5 nests there and you see 7 tree swallows flying around, you'd count 7 tree swallows. You'd put the breeding evidence that's appropriate for that particular visit, whatever it would be. Maybe you're seeing adults entering a nest box, you'd enter just simply once for that checklist, the highest breeding evidence that you saw. So if it was adult entering, you'd enter that for tree swallow, and then the number of birds that you saw on that checklist. The two are somewhat independent, the number of birds that you're seeing and the actual highest breeding evidence.
Perfect. No, that's a great answer. Okay, as I'm on to the questions that are on Zoom, and if anyone has any questions on Facebook, be sure to put them in the comments. We are checking the Facebook comments as well. Okay, so Steph asks, I completed an owl survey in April and BBS in June. Will that data go into the atlas automatically, or should I submit data for that?
Yeah, so when you say you did an owl survey, I guess you're meaning one of the Birds Canada's owl surveys. And if you did, yes, indeed, that atlas will make its way into the atlas. Quite when, we're not sure, but certainly by the end of the project, it will all be rolled in. So you don't need to worry about inputting it. We'll probably talk to those folks this winter and try and get this year's data in as soon as they have it cleaned up. And there was a second part to that question. Oh, about the BBS. Yeah, the BBS data, yes, definitely will be downloaded from BBS right to the Atlas database. And that's actually one of the reasons that we're using both 3 and 5 minute time intervals for the point counts, is to make sure that the BBS data is compatible with the Atlas data. Are you getting a lot of creaking on my, I got a door that's creaking here. I'll just go and get it. There we go.
Okay, we have one from Facebook from Brent. For automated recording unit that may be deployed and yet to be retrieved or analyzed, can this data be entered at a later date?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'll jump in on that one, but anyone else feel free to add more. Yes, we are just working up that. We had hundreds of ARUs all over the province put out by parks people and professional biologists and others, a few by naturalists. And yeah, there's there's going to be lots of time to get that data in. We're still working out the system. We're actually hoping to meet in the next couple of weeks to work out the specifics of how we're going to use these data and how we're going to extract the data from the recordings. So yeah, hang on to it. If you have recordings of your own, we'll be sending out information on how to submit it to the project.
I bet that's a relief for lots of folks. Okay, we have another one from Facebook, and it's from Doreen. Can you review the checklist that is generated with the web portal? I get a checklist that is already filled in, and I don't know how to enter new data.
Is that a Kaelyn question?
I can likely answer it. I think what the problem might be is that when you go onto nature counts, there's a column that says highest breeding evidence to date. And so I'm wondering if that's what the filled in data might be. I can always try to just go on and look or try to edit this. If I just go to continue. Okay, yeah, so I'll try to share this screen quick. For example, this killdeer has an H next to it already. And so I'm wondering if that's what they might possibly mean by data already being filled in. And so this little question mark just lets us know that that's the highest breeding evidence for the square in the past 5 years. So for killdeer in this particular square, the maximum breeding evidence is an H. And so that won't affect any of your data when you're putting it in. It's just to give you kind of information on what's already been reported there.
Yeah, and that shouldn't affect whether or not you put any data in. Again, each checklist sort of stands alone. So the fact that it's already been reported doesn't mean that you shouldn't enter a killdeer for that checklist. And I should say, although it said for the past 5 years, what it really meant is the Atlas period. The data that's summarized there is just from 2021.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Okay, so the next question, a few people have this kind of similar questions about rock pigeon and American crow. I was checking my square stats and noticed that my confirmed rock pigeon had been deleted. I then found that no atlaser has added rock pigeon. What is going on here? And so I think this also has to do with the American crow. And I think Mike Burrell might have a good answer for this one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there was another question there about American crow. And if you type in American crow and it pops up as American crow with American in brackets. Yeah, so there's some funky stuff going on right now because eBird just did their usually annual taxonomic update. So that has affected a few species in Ontario, American crow being one of them, where it's now what we call American crow now is American crow plus the old Northwestern crow. Anyways, the short answer is it's related to this taxonomic update and species concepts changing. So there's some funky stuff going on. We're well aware of it. Everything will be back to normal in a short amount of time. The American crow American thing, if that's still happening, I think we might have got it sorted out today, but if it's still happening, you'll have to send an email to Kaelyn, please, so we can try to get to the bottom of it, but should be sorted out pretty shortly with some of those missing species and things like that.
Yeah, definitely let me know in the next little bit if you're still having those issues. I know Burrell was one of them that was on the list as well, that some people were having issues with. So yeah. Okay, so next question. Okay, I saw an American woodcock feeding beside a creek, and there were 3 other American woodcock all feeding together. When we flushed them, the biggest one took flight and the others fluttered away one at a time in the same direction. Is this just H or FY?
Oh, it's kind of a your call in terms of when you say fluttered away, if it was pretty evident that there were not full-grown birds capable of sustained flight, like if they're ungainly and still fluffy and they're just sort of getting out of there and obviously not able to fly a couple of 100 meters away, then I think you're safe in that situation, as long as it's within the dates when the woodcock is likely to be breeding. If you just get something like that late in the year, I would be very suspicious about it. But sometime during the breeding season, when you get a group like that of what appear to be youngish looking birds that are not really, the key word is capable of sustained flight, then it is pretty safe to call those flesh young. We had a similar question for that with turkeys. That you often get these sort of 2/3 grown turkeys that are wandering around within a family group still, and yeah, those kind of things can get recorded as fledged young.
Awesome, that's a great answer. Okay, James on Zoom. As a new and inexperienced primary atlaser of a remote square, is there any kind of summary I need to generate after completing all of my nature counts entries? I think I'm the only person working in this particular square.
Do you want to handle that one, Kaelyn?
Yeah, sure. So there's nothing that you specifically need to do and hand into us. If you're interested in seeing kind of a summary of what's going on in your square, there's a few places that you can do that on nature counts. And one is under resources and then square resources. You can kind of look up your square and you can look at the square summary there. And so that gives you kind of a good summary of what you've found so far. But there's nothing that you specifically need to do and give to us. If you've entered all your data, then you've done your part.
Yeah, and your regional coordinator will be able to summarize data different ways, and probably will be back in touch with you over the winter if there's about whether more work is needed in the square, what kind of things that might be worth emphasizing. But yeah, most of it is covered in that square summary sheet that you're likely to need, because the square summary sheet, if you haven't seen one, actually it summarizes what was reported in the atlas last time, so you can get a pretty good idea of what kind of things you should be looking for this time as well.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was just gonna echo what both of you guys said, that the square summary sheet is like, it's gold. I'd be checking that. I mean, you don't need to check it every week or something, but especially for people that are in squares that have other atlasers coming in and doing atlasing, it's really handy to keep sort of tabs on if it's your square, see what's happening, and it gives you a really great idea of what stuff might be in your square that you haven't gotten yet based on what's been reported nearby.
Yeah, I can quickly share my screen just for those who are not really aware of the square summary sheets. If you go to resources, this is on nature counts on the database end of things, and Atlas square resources, you can find your square. I'll probably just find one that's already in my list. So you can go ahead and find your square, and then square summary sheet is kind of at the bottom of the list of resources that are available. And so when this opens, the previous code is what was found in the last atlas, and code is what has been found in this atlas. So if you're the only one atlasing in that square, then that's all going to be your information. Okay, I'll stop sharing there. Okay, so, okay, Wendy Hill. Wendy, when reviewing data forms, it would be very handy if the columns could be sorted by survey date instead of just form number. Is this an option that can be added in the future? It is bothersome to have to scroll back through the list to find a previous checklist. Yeah, that is a great point. Sorry, I thought there was an option to sort other ways, but maybe I'm just losing it here. Oh, so there is I'll just share my screen again. Sorry, I'm sharing and unsharing here. So order data forms by form number, and you can change this to observation date. If I press display forms, I'm hoping that it will, yeah. reorder them by observation date. So maybe you were changing this to observation date and then not pressing display forms. But I think you have to press display forms for it to kind of refresh and then put it in the order that you're looking for. Okay. If you have adult birds feeding young birds, is this CF carrying food or FY for the breeding code?
Yeah, good question. Whichever one is highest. The codes are all listed in order, and frankly, I forget whether I think carrying food is actually higher than fledged young, which always surprises me. But that's the order they're in. So, yeah, you might as well put carrying food because it's a higher level of breeding evidence.
Easy peasy.
That's the order they're listed in the app or wherever you're entering your data. They're in the order from lowest evidence to highest evidence. So you want to pick the highest code, which, as Mike said, in this case is that carrying food.
Awesome. Okay. Another question from Doreen. Is there a list of migrants for each square or area, or some sense of what should be counted versus what should be ignored as part of a data count?
Yeah, there's not, we don't have a list per square, but this is, again, your square summary sheet is quite handy. You can use the square summary sheet to see what was breeding there last atlas. So it's going to be pretty similar. On that square summary sheet, again, I'm trying to remember the columns off the top of my head, but there is the column that shows the percentage of squares within the region. And that's going to be only percentage of squares within the region that have breeding evidence on them. So again, that will be a helpful guide. And then the sort of third piece of information you can use are the safe breeding dates charts. So if you're well outside of the safe breeding dates for a species, that's sort of a good clue too, that you shouldn't be counting it in your square. But if it's a particular one you have a question about, then I would reach out to your regional coordinator. You can also use, we have the maps from Atlas 2, right? They're up on the website under Atlas Archives. So you can get a sense of, are we way outside of the range of this species in this area for breeding?
Yeah, that's a great resource. So yeah, it's on the Atlas website, birdsontario.org, under Atlas Archives. There's a species map option. Okay, we've got a question from Steve, who says, on the web portal, there's a glitch that happens every single record. The system automatically adds an extra 0 to the time. The hours are fine, but there is an extra 0 in the minute section. 9 times out of 10, when there's a problem with the checklist, I'm assuming checklist not submitting or not going to the next page, it's because of the 0 that has been added. I'm going to go ahead and answer this one. I think when you add an hour, it automatically just says it's that time o'clock. There's buttons to go up and down. So I think the original idea was that you would use the buttons. What I usually do is I just highlight the whole kind of minutes section and I type in my own minutes. It's a fix for now, but I agree that that can be super annoying if you're trying to say it's 5:10 or something and it's 500 because of the 0. Okay, so Steve has a second question, just a general curiosity. I think when you enter GRCA, it gives you a choice of gray catbird or sandhill crane. Is there a reason? I haven't noticed this myself, so I'm going to let you guys take this.
Yeah, I think sandhill crane is Grus canadensis. So it would be GRCA if you were to use a 4-letter code for the scientific name. So there's a few things like that pop up. And it's helpful for those who are using the scientific names, which isn't very many of us. But that would explain that, I hope.
Well, I just learned something new. You learn something new every day. So there you go. Thank you for that. Okay. Diane, oh no, Diane says, I just realized I didn't add the breeding evidence for all observations. I submitted my data last night. Is this a problem? I guess that depends on whether you mean like none of them had breeding evidence or there were some that you left it blank. I'll let you guys maybe take it from there.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it's really just a matter of getting them in there. And Kaelyn, you know more about the specifics of that. Is it straightforward to go in and just enter them? Okay.
Yes,
Maybe
yeah,
you
absolutely.
explain.
Yeah, so if you go into the web portal and you kind of take those steps to edit the checklist, kind of the steps that I went through earlier, you can easily just go through the species that you have on there that you have account for. And if there's breeding evidence that you want to add, then you can just click the drop-down menu and add it and then save the list. So yeah, it's not a big deal in the sense that you can still add it. It's just a matter of how many you need to add. So yeah, you can certainly do it. Okay. When reviewing my data, I've noticed that some reports and some full lists of data are missing. Not sure what happened, but what should I do? I have some paper notes, but they may not be totally complete.
I guess it depends. Like if you think that you entered it and it seems to be missing, in that case, then you should contact us and give us as much details as possible. Yeah, I guess I don't know. Maybe I'm misinterpreting that question. If you think that's the case, then definitely get in touch with us. There shouldn't be any missing data if it's been entered.
Yeah, definitely feel free to give me an email. You can email atlas@birdsontario.org, and that will come to me, and we can try to sort out what's going on with those lists and when you may have entered them or that sort of thing. So yeah, feel free to send me an email. Yeah, and I think that's all the questions. Oh, yeah, we haven't received any more questions on Facebook, and that's it for the Q&A on Zoom here. Does anyone have any last questions that they want to ask us, either on Facebook or on Zoom? If not, I guess we can always wrap up a little bit early here. Oh, how to find their checklists. Yeah, I can always go over that one. I went over it a little bit earlier. I'm not sure when Aaron joined. Do you want a second? Oh, someone, Doreen asked on Facebook, if we see something new that is way past the breeding date, do you still enter it? I'll just ask this one.
It depends. I mean, you should enter it. You can enter a checklist, especially if you're out atlasing, then enter what you see. But you should refer to those safe dates when you're entering breeding evidence. So, if it's something like the H code, the habitat, or just a singing bird, then, it could just be a migrant passing through. It happens to be in the habitat. But certainly if it's exhibiting some of those higher breeding evidence, where that it's definitely a local breeder, then for sure enter it. I can give you an example. Last week, I was out atlasing and I came across a barn swallow nest. But so first I saw some barn swallows flying around and I thought, oh, cool, barn swallows. I put it in my atlas checklist, but I had no breeding evidence. And then I noticed they were heading into a building. So I went and checked out the building, and I was very surprised to see it was a nest with chicks in it still. So that one, then I went and I put the breeding evidence code, nest with young, for that record. But because we're out of the safe dates, I wasn't going to enter the H code because that it could just be a migrant passing through. So have a look at the safe dates. They're on the Atlas website.
Yeah, Kaelyn and I used to study barn swallows, and we did have nests with young in them right into September, eh? Not many, a tiny fraction of the birds, but the odd one clinging on into the early part of September.
There's always those super early ones and then those super late ones that are just kind of weird. Or one time there was cliff swallows, and of course it was during my master's, and I had kind of planned out when I was going to do everything. And then this one colony of cliff swallows came and showed up and started this colony at the end of July. And my whole point was to compare them with the barn swallows, and they weren't there at the same time at all. So weird stuff happens. But yeah, that was very unfortunate. Okay, Steph asks, I have a bird journal for my property with species and evidence in safe dates throughout the season. What is the easiest way to enter all of this data? A checklist for each day may be onerous, but if that's the best, then that is what I'll do.
Yeah, I think that's the best. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say, why don't you take that one? It sounds right up your alley.
Yeah, so I missed part of that, but you've got a journal with the dates and of all the species that are breeding. Yeah, the best is to get hopefully you've got effort data. That would be the most helpful. You know, how much you were out each day kind of thing. But if not, then at least getting the dates, because there is information we'll glean from that in terms of, you know, what the timing is on different breeding behaviors and things like that across the province.
Yeah, maybe I'd add, I would suspect that those would be, they wouldn't be complete checklists. You'd enter a checklist for June the 4th and whatever you found on that day. And because it sounds like from your record taking, you wouldn't have a list of every species that you saw that day. You were just generally keeping track of what was breeding. Then you'd put that in as an incomplete list. Yes, I had sharp-chinned hawk nesting that day, but you know, it was an incomplete record. I didn't record all the song sparrows and the chipmunk sparrows and the yellow warblers that I also saw.
You managed to pick her birthday as your random date. Okay, that's great. So yeah, sorry, Steph, but a daily one is maybe the best bet. Sorry to say. Okay, anonymous attendee. This year, I spent much time observing chimney swifts and barn swallows. I have confirmed both as breeding evidence. Will that need to be redone again next year, or can I concentrate on other species?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the goal is to try and find all the species that are nesting in that square. So yeah, by all means, focus elsewhere. There's certainly, we would hope that you'd continue to report what you're seeing for chimney swifts. If you're out trying to find that chipping sparrow nest and there's a chimney swift flying by, you would also record that for your checklist. But yeah, it isn't as necessary to go out and focus on the species that you already have confirmed.
Perfect. Yeah, can find many more species with that time. Okay, Lynn says, are the square summaries updated automatically? I noticed one species is not up to date on my square summary, and I'm just curious how this could happen. And I have a few answers for that. The first is that if the species was detected on one of those special surveys, that data is not updating properly onto the square summary sheets. So if it was like an owl survey or one of those advanced point counts, those are sometimes not updating properly onto the square summary sheets. The square summary sheets do update automatically, and so it should be on there. Another possible option is that with the eBird, that taxonomy update, some of the species are not showing, kind of like that rock pigeon example that we had a bit earlier. So those are my two guesses as to why it's not showing up properly. If you go into your view data forms and you select kind of the species that you're saying is missing, and you press display data forms and that one pops up and it says, you know, that species is in this data form, then you should be okay on your end. It's just a problem with the square summary sheet.
And those are updated daily, right? The square summary sheets. So it's not like, I mean, and this doesn't sound like the issue that Lynn's describing, but you know, like, don't expect the square summary sheet to get updated like a minute after you enter the data, but it should be updated the next day. It gets updated.
Yeah, they should be updating daily. So it could be one of the other two options if it's already been, you know, over a day since you entered it.
Yeah, and I guess if it doesn't show up, let Kaelyn know.
Yep, definitely let me know. And you know, if it is confirmed that it's kind of one of those eBird things or whatever, I can at least just say that to you, you know, like, oh, it's showing up all right in the back end, and this is something we've experienced with eBird, and At least then that'll maybe ease your mind. Okay, I have a question from Doreen. I saw rose-breasted grosbeak in July, and then last week I saw a fledged chick. Do I enter it for the first sighting or when I saw the chick?
Well, you should enter it both places. Like it should, because it would be on there would be the checklist that you on which you first saw the bird. You should report it as a checklist on that day. And if it's really the only record that you have, then the fact that you've got a fledged young now, and you'd have to be sure that it really was a fledged young, like a bird from this year that was incapable of flying properly, then you could just alone report that. Because if you don't have a complete checklist for that earlier visit, then it's more or less redundant with the new information on the fledged young.
Yeah, and just to clarify, that July checklist, you wouldn't put fledged young as your breeding evidence for the July checklist. You use whatever the highest breeding evidence was on the visit that you saw. So in July, if you saw rose-breasted grosbeak singing, then you'd use the S code. And then when you enter this recent one, then that's when you enter the fledged young for that recent record. But you don't put fledged young as the breeding evidence code for that July record.
Yeah, and just to add to that, you know, if you put the singing code for the first one in July when you see the adult, and then you put the FY code, the fledged young code, you know, later on, when you look at your square summary sheet, it'll still tell you the highest one that you have kind of observed to date in that square. So you'll still get a handle of kind of what's confirmed, what's not confirmed, that sort of stuff. So yeah. Okay, well, that's again all the questions. We had another good round of questions there, so that's really great. I'm not seeing any. Oh, sorry.
There's a question on the chat from Aaron, and I don't know, Aaron, if you're still out there, if we've answered it yet, but he's saying he's asked, can you explain how people should find their checklists? And I think you've sort of covered it, but maybe if you could maybe more just directly answer that specific question, Kaelyn? Yeah,
absolutely, I can. Yeah, so if you're looking for your checklists, what I would recommend is and if you're starting on Nature Counts, which is the database portion of things, you go to Explore and View Data Forms. If you're on the Atlas website, which I'll just maybe go to, you can either press like Login, which takes you to the Atlas, to Nature Counts, the database, or you can go to this big Nature Counts button. And this will take you to Nature Counts, and you can go to Explore and View Data Forms from here. And that will show you all of your data forms that you've submitted to date. You can sort them by observation date if you'd like, if you're wanting to see the ones that are most recent. You can filter them by the protocol. So if I just wanted to see my screech owl survey data, another thing that's handy is looking up the site ID or name. You can put like a square number in there, like 17 TMH65, and then you have to press display forms to refresh the page and see what changes you're looking for. I don't think I have any for that square, but you need to, yeah, press display forms for anything to kind of pop up there. You can also sort by species. So like I said, if you had a wonky species on a list and your RC emails you saying, what the heck is this on here for? You can always kind of find that by, you know, looking, clicking on the species and pressing display forms and be like, oh, oops, it's on that one, sorry. And so, yeah, that's the different ways you can kind of look at your data forms. So yeah, I think that was all the questions. Sorry, I was just looking at Facebook. I think that was all the questions that we had there. And it doesn't seem like any last minute questions are coming in, and we're almost out of time. So do you guys have any last comments or anything you want anyone to know before we sign off today?
Well, I'll just say thanks for all the great questions. I actually got a bunch of good notes about things that we need to be doing better. So we'll be getting on those and trying to smooth things out as much as we can over the coming months.
Yeah, that's great. Mike Burrell, anything?
No, I was good. And I mean, yeah, it's still some atlasing to be done. Like I said, I had that barn swallow. Actually, there was like 3 nests in that little structure. I was really surprised.
Oh, that's awesome.
But still finding song sparrows feeding young, and yeah, there's still stuff going on. So.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, well, awesome. Yeah, definitely get out there. The weather is hot. You know, good to kind of get out before we're all cold and crammed inside. Steph said she had 3 Oriole nests in her 1-acre yard. Oh, that's awesome. And I guess the last thing that I want to say before everyone kind of signs off is just that, you know, don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything. You can get a hold of me, atlas@birdsontario.org. Or under the Get Involved tab on the website, there's a contact us if you kind of forget the email address. But yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. I am definitely here to help and answer any questions you might have. So I guess that's it. On the discussion board, yep, there is a discussion board on the website under Get Involved discussion board. You can feel free to ask any of your questions there as well, and the answers might help other people too. I do see on some of the questions that are asked that, you know, some of them have been viewed like over 100 times. So definitely nice to help out others who may have the same questions as you, because if you have the question, chances are other people do as well. So yeah. And I guess with that, we'll get going. We'll let you enjoy your Thursday evening. Yeah, have a good one, you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.